Mikel Arteta has been speaking about the trophy record since he took over in 2019, ahead of tonight's clash with Crystal Palace in the League Cup. Here's what he had to say.
It's coming up to 5 years now that you've been in charge of Arsenal this week. You turned them into title challengers, but it's only that one trophy in your first season. Does this competition and where you are now with a home time to quarter-final represent a big chance for silverware?
Well, the Charity Shield as well twice, no? So it's three, yeah.
I mean, Dan, come on, that is a bit desperate from old Mikel there, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't take that aspect seriously at all.
It's a friendly.
You can't be including that. You just can't be. And he called it by the wrong name. I think it's Community Shield, isn't it? Now, not the Charity Shield. So if you're going to count it, you've got to at least call it by its right name.
Are we being unfair here on the Charity Shield? I mean, both of our clubs have won the Intertoto Cup. We don't count that. Is it the same level as that?
Give me 10 years, I might be counting it.
I mean, Jose Mourinho famously counted it, didn't he, during his time at Manchester United? He counted it as a trophy.
You haven't had to kind of go through anything to win it. It's just the curtain.
Well, I guess you've had to win the FA Cup.
Yeah, but you've already won that, so it's like I don't really count is the Super Cup a big deal either?
No,
like,
yeah,
just a one-off tie to win a trophy. You're playing one game to win a trophy. Like that doesn't. I can't take that seriously.
No. Yes, I don't know why I tried to play devil's advocate there. It's absolutely ridiculous. But there was that kind of sense there that he was trying to defend that record. What do you make of the whole debate about, whether Arteta has, for want of a better way of putting it, underachieved during his time at Arsenal? Has been there since 2019, won one trophy.
I always think trophies sometimes are just a simplistic way of looking at success and a way of measuring success. Eric Ten Hag won 2 trophies, but look where he is. What's that done for Manchester United? Not a fat lot. If you look at what Arteta's done in 5 years in terms of moulding and shaping a football club and really having to go through a massive rebuild with Arsenal as well, completely change the philosophy and change the culture of the club, he's achieved an awful lot. Arsenal were not a serious team when he took over. Arsenal are now a serious team. They've challenged for the title 2 years running, going into a third, and okay, they haven't lifted the trophy or lifted the big trophies, but where Arsenal are now compared to where they were when he picked them up, it is night and day. So I think it's too simplistic to just base it all on trophies, because he's had to shape a whole football club, and he's done that very, very well. Arsenal, that first year they finished second. No one foresaw that coming. They went really, really close with Manchester City. So you could argue that they're ahead. Well, they definitely were ahead of schedule at that point. I think they're in a good place. I think if most sensible Arsenal fans have been offered where they are today and what they're doing today, regardless of the trophies, most would say, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I agree with you that it shouldn't all be measured, that success, on the basis of your trophy cabinet. To make Arsenal into title challengers has been a huge achievement. And given just how brilliant Manchester City have been, of course, during that time as well, we look back at Klopp as an amazing manager. He only won 1 Premier League. Yeah. So you've got to remember the almost perfection sometimes of Manchester City being so unbelievably difficult to get over the line against. But what I want to say is, if you look at it in the context of this season, though, Dan, where Man City have fallen off a lot, Liverpool have been very, very good, but at the same time, they are a squad that weren't invested in over the summer. Now, the slot hire has worked out excellently well, and their record speaks for itself. Lost 1 game the whole season. I get that is a very difficult thing to overcome, but do you feel that this season Arsenal and Arteta are missing a big opportunity to actually kick on and not just be title challengers, but actually win this league? And if they aren't there and thereabouts at the end of the season, not saying they won't be, but if they're not there by the end of the season, can that be looked at as actually a regression from where they have been?
I think if they finish second this season, they'll look at that as being a failure, not to the extent of Arteta's going to be in trouble and he's going to lose his job. But I think they kick themselves, because no one would have seen the Manchester City drop-off coming. They've been absolute titans. They've been heavyweights in competing for Premier League titles and winning Premier League titles. So for them to have regressed and dropped off as badly as they have, if you'd have had to have predicted a side to be where Liverpool are at the moment, most people would have said Arsenal.
What if it was second and a trophy? I mean, let's park it being the Champions League for the moment. Not saying they can't win it. They probably could win it. They're probably one of the strongest teams, I think, in that competition as well, given the form of especially the likes of City, of course, and even Real Madrid that they maybe have picked up recently, but so far haven't massively impressed in that competition in the way that they usually do. But what about a domestic trophy in second? Does that lift any kind of pressure off Arteta? Because at least he will have a trophy in the cabinet.
Not really, because I think people will always point back to the Premier League. If they were to come second and win the Champions League, that's a completely different conversation. That's something that Arsenal haven't won before. That's the highest level, isn't it, of trophy, the Champions League. I think it's a nice to have if they were to win a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup for Arsenal. But if they finish second, Manchester City don't get back into the title race, as I don't expect they will, I think Arsenal would look back at that as a real wasted opportunity and a waste of this group of players, because it's a huge chance for someone else to do it this year with the way Manchester City have been, and Arsenal would have really backed themselves to be that team this season.
They've spent a lot of money as well. They're third in the rankings since Arteta took over in 2019, 553 million that they've spent on players. Only Manchester United and Chelsea, who by the way are in that title race as well. Can't rule them out. Only they have spent more. So does that add a bit more pressure onto Arteta as well, because he's been allowed to invest in the way that he wants? He's brought in the players that he wants. Some of them have worked. Maybe some of them we've seen good spells and are now coming to the end of that kind of time, and thinking about the likes of Jesus, of course, Zinchenko as well. Has the recruitment been good enough, do you think, from an Arsenal perspective?
Probably a little bit of a mixed bag. I think they've had more successes than failures. They've obviously tried to go down a different route of, rather than buying like stars and players who are maybe approaching the end of their career but were big names, they've tried to shape a culture and have a philosophy in the transfer market, and they've done that very, very well. Obviously, Edu's departed. Has he gone yet, Edu? I think has he gone?
He
won't be there anyway. So the Edu days are behind them, and they're going to have to find someone else. But they've had a philosophy, and they've shaped something, and it's worked to a great extent for Arsenal. I would say that Arteta has enabled them to spend that money, because they've been qualified for the Champions League the last few years, which was something again that they were quite far off when he came in. They hadn't done it for a few years, so he's got them back, and you'd now say that they're going to be a consistent Champions League team. So I think he's earned the right to spend that money, and I can't think really of any massive duds that Arsenal have had over the last
Not
few
huge
windows.
duds.
They've spent
But I mean, the other thing you could say though, have they spent in the right areas? He's spent a lot on his defence, of course, and there've been some excellent signings, of course. Even if you look at just how he's developed some of those players as well, but even the likes of bringing in Timber, who was really unlucky with injury in that season before, but he's looked good. Calafiori, I think, is a really good signing as well. Has he invested enough at the other end of the field? We saw how much they suffered when Odegaard was out the team. Remember the fact that they obviously have sold players like Smith Rowe and Vieira in that time. Look, they're not the level of Odegaard, those two players, but that potentially left a bit of a gap. So is there a change in transfer policy that maybe needs to come about too?
I think they let Smith Rowe go, one, because it helps with PSR, and two, because I think they believe that they've got players who are younger coming through the academy who will benefit more from that kind of that game time than it will by playing Smith Rowe, who's not a long-term piece of the jigsaw for Arsenal. So I think they've done the right thing there. Obviously, people are going to label them that they should have bought a striker in this time, but I honestly think if the right fit had been there that Arteta thought would really improve them, he'd have done it already. There'd already be that striker, and I think when that striker does come up, Arsenal will get the right man in. But they've kind of gone big on individual players. Like they had the summer where they bought Declan Rice and Kai Havertz and spent big money. But they've spent big money, and those two players have done well for the football club. Look at the amount of big money Manchester United have spent to go backwards and regress. Declan Rice wasn't too far away from costing the same as Anthony. So yes, they've spent money, but at least you can say there's something tangible there. That they've spent it well. The players that are going to be really, really important for Arsenal for a long, long time. So I think people will just try and throw anything they can at Arteta and Arsenal, but I think fundamentally he has done a brilliant job there, but people will just try and throw different things at them.
I think it's again that crucial line, isn't it, that you said right at the start, that just measuring the success on trophies is enough. Do you know what? I think that comparison with Ten Hag is absolutely bang on as well, Dan, in the sense that, as much as that man won 2 trophies at Manchester United, the way he has taken that club backwards, and we're still seeing the effects of that, and it's such a massive rebuild for Ruben Amorim to get on with. All right, you've had your days in the sun, you've got your FA Cup and your League Cup, but in terms of taking a club forward and getting them to a stage where, like we've said with Arsenal, they're now challenging for titles again. You can't knock the fact that Mikel Arteta has done a very good job. I just think there will be this frustration, though, won't there, with the fans that finally this season has come about where City drop off. And yes, they're still in it. Yes, they've still very much got a chance. They're a team that have shown they can go on a very good run. But at the moment they are behind in that title race, and that must sting a bit, I think.
Yeah, look, Arsenal fans will have frustrations, but ultimately they've got a manager and a group of players that they can relate to, and a group of players that they can get behind, that are a likeable group of players for a fan base to support, and they haven't always had that. So I get that, yes, there will be certain frustrations with Arteta, and maybe certain frustrations with a few players as well at times, but fundamentally there's something to get behind there for them. Just
on those frustrations, there's been a bit of talk this week, especially after that draw with Everton, about potentially the tactics of Arteta being a bit too cautious, a bit too focused on not making mistakes. Do you think that's hampering Arsenal at the moment?
I think he's tried to go in a slightly different way, hasn't he, Arteta, and make them a bit more robust, make them a bit more safe. Manchester City were accused of being boring at times, but I guess the difference is they still got the job done in games where Arsenal are kind of new to this style of football, and it isn't always working for them. I watched that game on Saturday, the 90 minutes, and it was 90 minutes of my life completely wasted. But Everton did defend well, and they did make it difficult for them. But you're going to have days like that, aren't you? Teams are going to come to the Emirates and pack out the defence and play with a low block and make it hard to break down, and it's up to you to do it. And on this occasion, Arsenal didn't do it, but more often than not, I think if we were to look at Arteta's win ratio over the last 2.5 years, it would be a high ratio, wouldn't it?
No, definitely. At least Villa cheered you up.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.